If someone had told me heartbreak would walk me straight to her enemy, I wouldn't have believed it. Some silences are deafening, buzzing in your ears, prickling your skin, making your heart pound for answers that never arrive. Nora Callahan stood beneath the floral arch, bouquet trembling in her grip, staring down an aisle that stretched before her like a cruel joke. 200 pairs of eyes fixed on her, some confused, some pitying, others already whispering behind raised hands. Around her, the church seemed to hold its breath. The string quartet had stopped playing. Sunlight pouring through the tall cathedral windows felt too sharp, too intrusive, and Sloane wasn't coming. It had been 37 minutes. 37 agonizing minutes since the ceremony was supposed to start. 37 minutes of the wedding planner pacing like a trapped animal, of Nora's mother clutching her pearls, of murmurs rippling through the crowd like cracks spreading through glass. Nora hadn't moved. She kept waiting for the doors to swing open, for Sloane to appear in a blur of apologies, and maybe even laughter. Some ridiculous excuse that would explain everything and let them go back to the dream they'd been building together for 5 years. But it didn't happen. And then the planner returned, pale as death, holding an envelope in shaking hands. It's from Sloane," she whispered. Nora took the letter with numb fingers, opened it, read it. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. I thought I could, but I'm not ready. Please understand. It's better this way. I'm leaving tonight. I hope someday you'll forgive me." That was all. No name, no explanation, just cowardice, dressed up as closure. The silence broke in a wave of gasps and murmurs and chairs scraping the marble. As people began to stand, unsure of what to do, Nora didn't cry. Not then. She simply turned, walked out of the cathedral with the letter still clutched in her hand, her veil trailing behind her like a ghost. The photographer followed her out, snapping pictures as if the heartbreak belonged to him. Her mother called after her. A groomsman tried to stop her. She ignored them all. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. What score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. It wasn't until she reached the car, the sleek black one Sloane had rented for their grand exit, that the tears came. Not quiet ones, violent, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. The driver didn't say a word, just watched her through the rearview mirror like a tragedy in motion. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the honeymoon suite, untouched, pristine, mocking, in the dress she hadn't been able to unzip, surrounded by champagne bottles no one had opened. The letter sat on the floor, useless now. The tabloids moved fast. By morning, articles were already circulating. Elise Sloane Mercer leaves fiancé at the altar. Scandal at Riverton's wedding of the year. Photos of Nora alone at the altar. Close-ups of the tear-stained letter. And then came the bombshell. Sloane had flown to Europe with Camille Moreau, a French model she'd met 3 months ago. Camille had posted a photo of the two of them in Rome. Caption: Lobby Estro Court pour les compromis. Life is too short for compromise. Nora stared at the screen and felt something in her snap. Not her heart that had already shattered. No, this was something deeper, colder. A fire rising from the ashes. A need to reclaim something Sloane had stolen. Not just her dignity, her future, her sense of self. She could have gone to therapy, could have taken time off, could have let herself disappear. But instead, she made an appointment with Valeria Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Development. Ruthless, elegant, richer than God, and Sloane's most hated rival. Nora had never met her, but she'd heard the stories. The way Valeria had crushed her competition in boardrooms. How she never smiled in photos. How she'd once turned down an award just because it had Sloane Mercer's name attached to it. When Nora walked into the Whitmore Tower, she wore all black and no ring. The receptionist looked up, surprised. "Do you have an appointment?" "Not yet," Nora said calmly. "But tell Miss Whitmore that the woman Sloane Mercer abandoned at the altar wants to make her an offer." 10 minutes later, She was in a glass elevator soaring toward the top floor. Her hands shook. Her pulse raced. But she didn't back down. When the doors opened, she stepped into an office made of stone and steel and silence. And there she was, Valeria Whitmore, 32, sharp suit, sharper eyes, a glass of bourbon in one hand, a look of pure curiosity on her face. "You're either brave," she said without standing, "or absolutely unhinged." "Maybe both," Nora replied. Valeria gestured to the seat across from her. "Then let's hear it." Nora sat, crossed her legs, and met her gaze without flinching. "I want to marry you." A flicker of something passed through Valeria's eyes. Amusement, intrigue, maybe even respect. "You want what?" "A marriage of convenience," Nora said. "You get access to Mercer-locked contracts. I get the last word. Sloane will choke on the headlines. You win, I win." Valeria leaned back, studying her. "And what makes you think I'd agree to that?" "Because you hate her," Nora said. "And you love to win." Silence stretched between them. Then Valeria smiled. "Slow, deliberate, dangerous. You're more interesting than I thought. Is that a yes?" Nora asked. "It's a maybe," Valeria replied. "But let's get one thing clear. If we do this, I won't pretend to love you. I won't cuddle you. I don't play games unless I know the rules." Nora nodded. "I don't want love. I want revenge." "Then you've come to the right woman." They shook hands. And just like that, the contract began. A ring was ordered. A date was chosen. And the city began to whisper again. But this time, Nora wasn't the woman who got left behind. She was the woman who walked into fire and came out wearing diamonds. The engagement was announced 1 week later. Nora Callahan, once heartbroken, now fiancée to the most powerful woman in the city. Sloane's reaction came swiftly, a text unread. Then a voicemail begging to talk. Nora deleted both. She had a wedding to plan with the one woman her ex could never beat. The diamond ring Valeria had chosen was obscene. Not in size, though it was large enough to demand attention, but in the message it sent. Cold, flawless, unapologetically expensive. The kind of ring that said, "Touch her, and you answer to me." Nora stared at it as Valeria slid it onto her finger during their first public appearance. As an engaged couple, a charity gala hosted by the Riverton Women's Power Network, the same one she had once planned to attend with Sloane. Now here she was standing next to a woman who barely looked at her, yet held her arm with the confidence of possession. The photographers swarmed as soon as they walked in. Flash bulbs popped. Questions flew. "Nora, over here. Is it true, Ms. Whitmore? When's the wedding? How long have you two been together?" Valeria didn't smile. She didn't answer. She simply placed her hand on the small of Nora's back, leaned in, and said low enough for only her to hear, "You're doing great. Just breathe." The warmth of her palm lingered even after she stepped forward to address the press. "We appreciate your interest," Valeria said coolly. "Details will come when we're ready." It was the perfect deflection, enough to feed the headlines, not enough to expose a single truth. Nora watched her work the room with silent awe. Valeria wasn't charming. She was commanding. Where Sloane had always chased approval, Valeria controlled the narrative. And Nora, who had once felt invisible in Sloane's shadow, now stood beside someone who made the world pay attention. Throughout the night, Nora played her part. She smiled, nodded, laughed at the right times. She touched Valeria's arm during conversations, leaned in during private moments. But every gesture felt like a performance because it was. Still, there were flickers, small cracks in the act that didn't feel like acting at all. Like the way Valeria's eyes lingered too long when Nora laughed, or the moment in the powder room, when Nora caught her staring at the exposed line of her back in the mirror, and looked away too late. Later that night, as the driver pulled up to Valeria's penthouse, neither of them spoke. Nora toyed with the ring on her finger, the diamonds catching the light like sharp little secrets. "You don't have to stay," Valeria said once they stepped into the apartment. "Not tonight." We agreed this wouldn't be personal, Nora said, her clutch on the marble counter, eyes scanning the immaculate space. Everything was glass, metal, control. So, what is it then? A transaction. It's a strategy. Valeria replied. You came to me with a plan. I'm helping you execute it, right? Nora said, voice tight. And if I feel something, Valeria's eyes met hers. Then you need to remember what this is. Nora stepped closer, stopping just short of touching her. I remember exactly what this is. That doesn't mean it's not something else, too. Valeria's jaw tensed. She turned away. Don't confuse gratitude for attraction. I'm not confused, Nora said. I know what I'm feeling. The question is, do you? Silence. Then finally, Valeria turned. You were left at the altar 3 weeks ago. I didn't die, Nora snapped. I didn't lose the ability to want or to be wanted. Is that what this is about? Valeria asked. Proving someone still wants you. No, Nora said. It's about not pretending anymore. They stood there, tension coiling between them like a wire ready to snap. Then suddenly, Valeria moved one step, then another until she was close enough for Nora to feel her breath. You want honesty? She murmured. Fine. You're beautiful. You're bold. You walk into my office with a proposal that would have made most people laugh, and somehow made me say yes. You don't scare easy. You don't beg. And that is rare. Nora's breath caught. So what now? Now, Valeria said, voice low. You sleep in the guest room because I promised you power, not confusion. And just like that, she stepped away, left Nora standing there, pulse racing, heart pounding, mouth dry. That night, Nora lay in a bed too soft, in a room too quiet, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. The next morning, the tabloids exploded. Photos of the gala, close-ups of the ring, headlines like Power Couple of the Year. Nora Callahan and Valeria Whitmore stunned Riverton society. Nora sipped her coffee slowly, scrolling through the coverage, wondering what Sloane was thinking as she read every line. She didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, she received a message. We need to talk. Please. I made a mistake. Nora stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. Then she typed one word. Too late. That night, Valeria returned from a board meeting and found Nora cooking in the kitchen. In her space. In her shirt. You know you don't have to do that, Valeria said, loosening her tie. I know, Nora replied. But I wanted to. Valeria leaned against the counter, watching her. You're adjusting faster than I expected. Maybe I like power, Nora said with a smirk. Or maybe I like reminding the city that I'm not the girl who got dumped. I'm the woman who upgraded. Valeria's lips twitched, almost a smile. Careful. If you keep talking like that, I might forget this is all pretend. Nora looked at her, fire dancing behind her eyes. Who said I'm pretending? And there was again the spark, the tension that neither of them was ready to name. But both of them felt like gravity. They ate in silence side by side. The wine flowed. The air thickened. And when Valeria reached for Nora's hand, not as part of the plan, not for the cameras, but just because Nora let her, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. This was no longer about revenge. It was about power, about chemistry, about control shifting in delicious, dangerous ways. And the next move. Neither of them knew who would make it, but they both knew it was coming. The first time Valeria kissed her, it wasn't part of the plan. They were at a black tie fundraiser hosted by the mayor's office, surrounded by politicians, CEOs, and old money socialites who clung to champagne glasses like lifelines. Nora was dressed in deep emerald satin, her hair swept into a chignon that revealed the sharp curve of her jaw. Valeria, in all black as usual, had barely looked at her since they stepped out of the car. But Nora could feel the awareness between them like electricity crackling under skin. They had become the most talked about couple in the city. Not just because of the scandal or the business implications, but because somehow they looked real, too, and that terrified both of them. The whispers followed them as they moved through the ballroom. Nora heard them. "Isn't that the girl who got dumped? I heard she seduced Valeria for revenge. Honestly, I think Valeria might actually be into her." That last one stuck. Nora had started to notice it, too. The way Valeria's eyes lingered just a second too long. The way her fingers brushed Nora's lower back in public, steady, possessive. The way her voice softened when no one else was around. During dinner, a senator's wife leaned across the table and asked a little too loudly, "So, how did you two fall in love?" Valeria didn't blink. "Effortlessly," she said, reaching for Nora's hand. "She walked into my office and ruined everything I thought I wanted." Nora didn't flinch. She tightened her fingers around Valeria's and smiled like she believed every word. But the truth was, part of her did. After dinner, they escaped to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. Nora pulled off her heels, rubbing her sore feet, the buzz of champagne soft in her veins. Valeria leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching her. "You handled yourself well tonight," she said. "You're getting good at this." "You mean pretending we're in love?" Nora asked. "Pretending you don't want to kiss me." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Valeria's gaze sharpened. "Careful," she said, her voice low. "I'm not sure you know what you're playing with." "I'm not playing," Nora replied, stepping closer. "You keep acting like this is all calculated, that there's a line we're not supposed to cross. But you and I both know that line disappeared the moment you started looking at me like this." Valeria said nothing, but her breathing shifted. Her posture changed. The mask slipped just for a moment. Nora reached out, touching the lapel of her suit. "So, what's stopping you?" "You," Valeria said. "You still think this is about Sloane, about revenge, and I'm not interested in being someone's rebound." Nora's fingers tightened on the fabric. "I came to you because of her, but I stayed because of you." The silence between them deepened. Then slowly, deliberately, Valeria closed the distance. She didn't ask permission. She didn't give warning. Her hand cupped Nora's cheek and her mouth claimed hers. In a kiss that was nothing like what Nora expected. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, restrained, furious. The kiss of someone who had been trying not to want for far too long. Nora kissed her back with equal fire, hands tangling in Valeria's hair, body arching into hers. When they finally pulled apart, both of them breathless, Valeria whispered, "We can't do this." "Then stop me," Nora said. But Valeria didn't. Instead, she pulled her close again and pressed her forehead to Nora's. "This was never part of the deal." "Maybe the deal needs to change," Nora whispered. The next morning, everything was different and exactly the same. They didn't speak about the kiss. They moved through breakfast like nothing had happened. But the air between them was thicker now, heavier, charged with unspoken tension. Nora found herself watching Valeria more closely. The way she tapped her pen during meetings. The way her gaze lingered when she thought Nora wasn't looking. That night, Nora found a garment bag hanging on her closet door. Inside was a navy blue gown, sleek and backless, with a handwritten note tucked into the neckline. "Dinner at the Lyric 8 p.m. No cameras, no lies." Nora smiled. When she stepped into the restaurant that night, every head turned. Valeria was already there waiting, a glass of red wine in front of her. She stood when Nora arrived, eyes dark with something unreadable. "You look," she trailed off. "Say it," Nora challenged. "Dangerous." "Good," Nora said, sitting. "That's how I feel." The dinner wasn't business. It wasn't press. It was just them. And for the first time, Nora saw Valeria relax. She told a story about her childhood, about getting kicked out of her parents' country club when she came out. Nora shared how she used to cry in secret when Sloane forgot their anniversaries. They laughed. They listened. And when dessert came, Valeria reached across the table and took Nora's hand. No act, no audience, just connection. I don't know what we're doing, she admitted. I don't either, Nora said, but I don't want to stop. Neither do I that night. They didn't sleep in separate rooms. They undressed slowly, reverently, as if mapping every scar, every story. They didn't ask questions. They didn't make promises. But they held each other like truth. And in a quiet just before dawn, Valeria whispered, I haven't let anyone in for years. Nora kissed her shoulder. Then you were overdue. The next day, the world remained unchanged. The headlines continued. The business deals advanced. But behind closed doors, Nora and Valeria had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. And neither of them wanted to. Not anymore. Nora didn't sleep much the next night. Not because of nerves, not because of doubt, but because every time she closed her eyes, she could still feel Valeria's hands on her skin, the slow burn of lips against her throat, the way their bodies had moved in sync, as if the act wasn't new, but remembered. She woke tangled in sheets that smelled like musk and heat, and something unnameable between them, a weight in her chest that wasn't fear, but something far more dangerous. Hope. Valeria was already gone. A note on the pillow in her sharp nonsense handwriting. Early meeting. Coffee's in the kitchen. Nora ran her fingers over the ink, smiled, and whispered into the empty room. Of course you made coffee. The penthouse was quiet. The city outside stretching into late morning sun. She padded barefoot into the kitchen, still wearing Valeria's oversized shirt, and poured herself a cup. The taste was strong, bitter, familiar, like her. She was still sipping when her phone buzzed. Unknown number, one text. I'm outside. Don't ignore me. Nora stared at the screen, then slowly walked to the massive windows that overlooked the private lobby for floors below. And there she was. Sloane, sunglasses, expensive coat, arms crossed, chin lifted in that signature Mercer arrogance she used when she knew she was in the wrong, but refused to admit it. Nora's blood ran cold. She considered not answering. She considered calling security. But something in her, something hard and unfinished, pushed her forward. She took the elevator down, each floor heavier than the last. When the doors opened, Sloane turned, removed her sunglasses, and said, You look good. Nora didn't answer. She didn't return the compliment. You have 60 seconds, she said flatly. Sloane stepped forward. I'm sorry. Not good enough. Nora, please. No, you don't get to beg now. You had 5 years and one altered to do the right thing. You chose a flight to Rome and a model who didn't even speak your language. It was a mistake, Sloane said, voice cracking. I panicked. I wasn't ready. You weren't honest, Nora snapped. That's what you weren't. You let me believe we were building a future while you were already halfway out the door. Sloane looked at her like she didn't recognize the woman in front of her. And maybe she didn't. This wasn't the Nora she left behind. This was someone sharper, stronger, changed. You still love me? Sloane said quietly. No, Nora replied. I loved you. Past tense. Now I'm in love with someone who didn't run. The words came out before she realized she believed them. And God, she did. Even if it scared her. Even if it wasn't supposed to be this real. Sloane's eyes narrowed. Valeria. Nora didn't respond. She didn't need to. Sloane laughed bitterly. You actually think she cares about you? She's using you for power, for press. You're just another pawn in her game. Then I guess I'm not the only one she plays well with, Nora said, stepping back toward the elevator. Goodbye, Sloane. Nora, wait. If you show up here again, I'll have security escort you out. And if you contact me again, I'll treat it as harassment. Sloane's mouth fell open, stunned. You've changed. I had to, Nora said, because loving you cost me everything. But loving her, that saved me. The doors slid shut. Upstairs, Nora's hands shook. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. 10 minutes later, Valeria walked in, coat still on. Mid-conference call, and Nora went straight to her, took the phone from her hand, and kissed her hard, urgent, real. Valeria froze, then softened into it. What was that? She asked, breathless. Sloan was here, Nora whispered, and I needed to remember who I am now. Valeria cupped her cheek. What did she say? That you're using me? That I'm a pawn? And what do you believe? Nora asked. That if this is a game, I'm winning it right beside you. Valeria kissed her again, slower this time, and Nora knew none of it was pretend anymore. That night, Valeria didn't go back to work. She canceled meetings, shut off her phone, and cooked dinner barefoot while Nora sat on the counter, listening as Valeria told childhood stories. They laughed over red wine. They kissed over burnt pasta. They made love again, not like a power play, but like a promise. Afterward, they lay together in the dark, limbs tangled, heartbeats steady. Nora turned to her. Do you ever regret saying yes to this? Valeria looked at her. No, but I didn't say yes because I wanted revenge. I said yes because for the first time in years, I looked at someone and thought she might actually see me. I do, Nora said. I see you, Valeria. And if this gets messy, then we get messy together. Valeria smiled, really smiled, and Nora realized she'd never seen anything so beautiful. But even as they drifted to sleep, safe for now, the city outside continued to whisper. Headlines about power, rumors about betrayal, and in the shadows, Sloan Mercer was already planning her next move. Because she wasn't done yet, the email dropped at 9:17 a.m. sharp. No warning, no sender name, just a subject line that read, Do you really know who you're sleeping with? Nora was sipping her second coffee of the day, curled up on the wide sofa in Valeria's living room, reviewing updates for the upcoming gala that Whitmore Enterprises was sponsoring. She almost didn't open it. Almost. But curiosity, the kind that had burned her before, won again. Inside the email was a single file, a press-ready PDF marked confidential in bold red letters. The first page showed a black and white photo of Valeria standing beside a bulldozer at a construction site flanked by several men in suits. The headline read, Valeria Whitmore and the displacement scandal they buried. Nora's blood chilled as she scrolled. Paragraph after paragraph detailed an old Whitmore project in a low-income neighborhood. On the south side, allegations, forced evictions, protesters silenced. There was even a quote from a community activist claiming Valeria crushed families for profit. Nora's hands trembled. She hadn't heard of any of this, and she'd spent weeks Googling everything she could about Valeria when their agreement began. Her chest tightened. Was this real? She forwarded the email to Valeria without a message. A minute later, Valeria called. Her voice was clipped. You saw it. You knew this was coming? I suspected. Sloan's been trying to dig up dirt for weeks. She's been calling journalists, former employees, even my mother. Is it true? Nora asked softly, a pause. Then not like that. Yes, the project happened. Yes, there were protests, but we followed every legal protocol. What they don't say is that we funded a relocation initiative. We paid more than required. The story was twisted to sound brutal because Sloan needs a headline. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking now. Nora flinched. I'm not looking at you like anything. You're looking at me like you're wondering if you made a mistake. Did I? Another silence. Valeria exhaled slowly. I won't beg you to believe me, Nora, but I will tell you this. I've done hard things, ruthless things, but I've never lied to you. Not once. Nora wanted to believe her. God, she did. But trust wasn't easy for someone who had been left without warning. Lied to for years. Discarded like nothing. She closed her eyes. What happens now? Now, Valeria said, her voice hardening. We don't blink. The story will go live in less than 24 hours. Sloan's banking on your silence, on you walking away. But if we show up together at that gala tomorrow, hand in hand, she loses the narrative. And I promise you, I will burn down anything she builds from this." That night, Nora didn't sleep in the guest room. She slept beside Valeria, not out of comfort, but out of choice. Their bodies found each other like gravity. But afterward, in the silence, Nora turned to her and whispered, "I want to believe you." Valeria didn't touch her, didn't kiss her, just whispered back, "Then let me earn it." The next day, the scandal broke. Full spread photos, accusations, social media exploded, hashtags, memes, opinions from strangers who didn't know anything beyond the headline. Nora was trending, so was Valeria. But they walked into the gala anyway. Nora wore white. Valeria wore deep crimson. A statement, a war cry. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters held signs outside the venue. But when the doors opened, all anyone saw was power. The woman who had been left at the altar, and the woman who had built her empire from glass and steel, walking into the fire side by side. Inside, Nora leaned close to Valeria and said, "Do you hear that?" "What?" The silence. Valeria arched a brow. "I don't hear silence." "Exactly," Nora said. They stopped whispering. During the dinner, a journalist cornered Nora near the bar. Young, arrogant, holding his phone up like a weapon. "Do you think being with Valeria Whitmore compromises your morals?" he asked. "Do you stand behind what she did?" Nora didn't flinch. "I've stood behind worse. I stood behind a woman who lied to me for 5 years, who left me at the altar with a letter. I've stood behind heartbreak and humiliation and the weight of everyone's pity. But now I stand beside someone who never promised to be perfect, only honest. And that is more than most people ever give." The journalist faltered. Nora walked away. Valeria met her near the dance floor, offering her a glass of champagne. "You didn't have to defend me." "I wasn't defending you," Nora said. "I was telling the truth." They danced slowly, not because the music called for it, but because it felt right. Their bodies aligned, their hearts in sync, and for the first time, Nora realized she wasn't angry anymore. She was alive. Later that night, in the back of the town car, Valeria took Nora's hand. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." Nora looked out the window, the city lights blurring past. "Maybe not, but maybe what I needed wasn't what I expected. And Sloane made me small. You made me dangerous." Valeria kissed her hand. "Good, stay dangerous. I like you like this." Back at the penthouse, they didn't speak much. They just undressed each other slowly, as if peeling back armor. And afterward, tangled in sheets and truth, Nora whispered, "What if this becomes real?" Valeria kissed her temple. "It already is." But in the quiet hours of the night, Sloane Mercer watched the footage of the gala over and over again, jaw clenched, nails digging into her palm. She wasn't done. Not yet. If she couldn't have Nora back, she'd make damn sure Valeria didn't keep her either. Nora should have known the silence wouldn't last. It had been for days since the gala, for days since she had publicly, loudly, and without hesitation declared her loyalty to Valeria. The scandal had started to die down. The news cycle moved on. Investors stopped panicking. Protesters stopped showing up outside Whitmore Tower. Valeria's numbers rebounded. The world, it seemed, was ready to move on. But Sloane wasn't. The attack came not through tabloids or whispered rumors. It came through something far worse. Humiliation. A video. Nora didn't know it existed. She certainly hadn't given consent. But there it was, released anonymously on a gossip blog with millions of followers. Already going viral by the time she woke up. A private moment from 3 years ago. She was in a hotel room, laughing, tipsy, dressed in an oversized t-shirt. Sloane filming her with a phone. Nora's voice echoed through the speakers. "I'd marry you tomorrow if you ask." "Really?" Sloane's voice, coy. "You'd throw everything away for me." Of course, Nora had giggled. You're it for me, Sloane. You're my whole future. Then the camera cut to black, but the damage had been done. The video came with a caption. Does Valeria Whitmore know her fiancé begged her ex to marry her? Nora felt the ground drop beneath her. Her phone exploded with texts. Friends, family, her agent, even her arranged cousin in Oregon. She turned on the news. They were playing it on morning TV. Valeria found her in the kitchen, pale and shaking, holding a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. I didn't know she recorded it, Nora whispered. I don't even remember that night. Valeria's face was a mask of cold fury. She's crossing a line. Everyone thinks I still love her. Do you? Nora looked up, eyes blazing. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have defended you. I wouldn't have slept in your bed. I wouldn't have kissed you like I meant it. You still haven't said it, Valeria said softly. Said what? That you're mine? Nora blinked, then set the coffee down and crossed the kitchen until she was inches from her. I'm yours, and not because I want revenge. Not because it makes a good headline, but because for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm too much or not enough. I feel seen, chosen, safe. Valeria's expression cracked just slightly. Then we handle this together. How? Nora asked. She weaponized my past. Then we give her no power in the present. The press release went out 2 hours later. Short, ruthless, written by Valeria herself. Miss Callahan's past is not a scandal. It is a testament to the depth with which she loves and the courage with which she moved on. She is not defined by the people who failed to love her properly. She is defined by what she built after. I stand by her then, now, and always. The post was shared over 4 million times in 24 hours. Valeria was praised for her loyalty. Nora was flooded with support. Survivors of toxic relationships, public humiliations, and emotional betrayals rallied around her. But behind the public celebration, the private cost was heavy. That night, Nora sat curled on the couch, silent. Valeria brought her wine, sat beside her, and didn't ask questions, just waited. Eventually, Nora whispered, I hate that she can still reach me. That I'm still bleeding for things I thought I buried. You don't owe anyone perfection. Valeria said, least of all her. I know, but I wanted to be untouchable. You are, Valeria said, not because you're flawless, because you don't hide the cracks. Nora leaned into her shoulder. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Then let me help you remember how powerful you are. Valeria stood, reached out her hand. Nora took it. No words, just a pull toward the bedroom. But when they undressed, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't about distraction or anger or proving anything. It was reverent, healing. Valeria kissed every inch of her like she was rewriting the story Sloane had tried to control. Nora touched her like she was anchoring herself to the present. And when they collapsed together, sweat-soaked and breathless, Nora said it without fear. I love you. Valeria froze, then cubed her face. Say it again. I love you. Valeria kissed her like it was oxygen. You make it very hard to stay cold. Good, Nora whispered. You're too warm to pretend otherwise. In the days that followed, Sloane tried to recover the narrative. She posted a carefully edited video of herself crying, claiming she'd been hacked, that the footage was leaked without her knowledge. No one believed her. She lost thousands of followers. Brands dropped her. The sympathy she craved twisted into contempt. But she wasn't done. Not yet. Not until she destroyed what she couldn't have. Valeria knew it. Nora felt it. And so when they walked into a high-profile fundraiser, hosted by the Riverton Arts Collective a week later, dressed in coordinated midnight blue and ivory, they held hands not just for the cameras, but for armor, because this wasn't about image anymore. It was about survival. And what neither of them expected was that Sloane would be there too at the bar wearing red waiting. As Nora and Valeria crossed the room, the crowd parted, not because of tension, but because everyone knew this was war, and the battlefield had just been set. The room went silent as soon as Sloane turned around. The bar lights caught the glint of her earrings, the perfect sheen of her crimson dress, the practiced tilt of her chin. She looked every bit but the picture of scandalous resilience. The ex-fiancé trying to reclaim her place in a room she no longer ruled. Nora felt Valeria's fingers tighten slightly around hers. Not possessive, protective. "Stay close," Valeria murmured. "Let her speak first. She always needs to control the narrative." Sloane approached like a performance. Slow, measured, eyes locked on Nora as if Valeria didn't exist. "You look different," she said. "Stronger, colder." "I am," Nora replied, her voice even. "You made sure of that." "I came to talk," Sloane said, ignoring the growing crowd of whispers around them. "Not fight." "Then you should have sent a letter," Valeria said flatly, her tone cool as ice. Sloane didn't blink. "You've always been good at manipulating people, Valeria. I just didn't think Nora would be one of them." "She's not being manipulated," Nora snapped. "She's being loved, which is more than you ever gave me." Sloane's smile faltered. For the first time, the mask cracked. "You used to say I was the love of your life, and you used to say you'd show up," Nora replied. "But here we are." "She's dangerous, Nora," Sloane said, stepping closer. "You don't know what she's capable of." "I do," Nora said. "That's why I trust her." "You really think this is love?" Sloane whispered. "You think she doesn't have a plan, a strategy? She's building an empire on your story. Then we'll build it together," Nora said. "Because unlike you, she doesn't run when it gets hard, and she doesn't betray me to the world." Sloane looked like she wanted to scream. Her lips parted, but Valeria stepped in. "Enough," she said. "If you ever try to sabotage Nora again, if you so much as send another message, leak another video, or show your face where she breathes, I will bury you so deep in litigation you'll forget what sunlight feels like." "Is that a threat?" Sloane asked. "That's a promise," Valeria replied. "And I always keep mine." Nora had never seen her like this. Coiled, lethal, barely restrained. The entire room watched, silent and stunned. Sloane stared at Valeria, then at Nora. "You'll regret this," she said softly. "No," Nora said, stepping into Valeria's side, threading her fingers through hers. "I only regret ever believing you were capable of love." With that, they walked away. The tension followed them like perfume. But Nora didn't look back. Not once. In the car, she was quiet. Valeria sat beside her, fingers interlaced. "Are you okay?" she asked. Nora nodded. "It's strange. 4 years. I imagined what I'd say to her if I had the chance. I thought it would feel triumphant, powerful. But it just feels done." Valeria looked at her. "Closure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a door you stop knocking on." "You stopped her for me," Nora said. "You didn't have to." "Yes," Valeria said. "I did." Back at the penthouse, the atmosphere was heavy with everything unsaid. Nora kicked off her heels, unzipped her dress, and disappeared into the bathroom. Valeria followed moments later, found her staring into the mirror, bare shoulders tense. She came up behind her, rested her hands gently on her waist. "You don't owe her anything," she said. Nora met her gaze through the glass. "I know. I wanted her to hurt. But now that she does, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't erase what I went through." Valeria turned her gently until they faced each other. "Then let me give you something better than revenge." She kissed her soft, slow, reverent. Not like a possession, like a promise. They made love that night with more tenderness than heat. Every touch said, "I choose you." Every breath said, "You're safe now." And when Nora fell asleep in Valeria's arms, she knew the shift had happened. This wasn't pretend. This wasn't survival. It was real. The next morning, she woke to breakfast already made, a kiss pressed to her temple, and a schedule cleared for the day. "You're taking a break," Valeria said. "I don't need. You do. And I want to give you space to remember who you are outside of all this." Nora softened. You always act like you're made of steel. But you care more than anyone I've ever known. Don't ruin my reputation, Valeria smirked. But beneath the teasing, there was vulnerability. A kind of tenderness Nora had only started to uncover. They spent the day in pajamas, watching old movies, ignoring calls. The world kept spinning outside headlines, gossip, backlash, but inside the penthouse they carved out a fragile calm. Right up until Valeria's assistant called. You need to see this, she said. A photo, a leaked file, a forged contract tying Nora's name to an illegal offshore account. It was fake, obviously fake, but convincing enough to wound, and it had already gone viral. Sloane wasn't just coming for Nora's heart anymore. She was coming for her integrity, her future. For the first time since any of this began, Valeria went absolutely still. This changes things. No, Nora said, Josette. This ends things. Because now it wasn't about history. It was about war. And they weren't playing defense anymore. The counterfeit was immaculate to immaculate. A pristine forgery, Nora's cursive signature linking her to a Cayman Islands account. Dated the week after her public engagement to Valeria, making the implication brutal and clear. That Nora had married for money, not love. A masterstroke of deception. Exactly the kind of move Sloane needed to drag them both through the muck. But Valeria wasn't the sort to wallow there. She turned mud into concrete and built empires on top of it. She thinks this will scare you, Valeria said, pacing her office with a precision that bordered on surgical. She thinks if she stains your name, I'll cut you loose to protect mine. Nora stood at the window, arms folded. She had cried for 5 minutes. That was her limit now. Let her think that, she said. Let her believe I'm breakable while we burn down everything she's ever touched. Valeria stopped pacing. We're going public. I want you beside me at the press conference. And if they doubt us, we show them proof. Within 12 hours, Valeria's legal team assembled the evidence. Bank logs, authentication analyses. A cyber trail tracing the leak to a location registered to one of Sloane's shell companies. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a lawsuit waiting to be filed. But Valeria had no interest in quiet settlements. She wanted exposure. She wants the world to think you're a gold digger, Valeria said. So, we show them what gold looks like when it's forged. Nora met her gaze. Then, let's destroy her, but on our terms. The next morning, the press conference was packed. Cameras, journalists, spectators, protesters, fans, doubters. Valeria wore black, sleek, commanding, a storm made of silk and steel. Nora wore gray, elegant, controlled, untouchable. But when she stepped up to the microphone, her voice wasn't cold. It was fire. 3 years ago, I told a woman I loved her. That woman left me at the altar without warning, without explanation. A week ago, she leaked a video of that moment to embarrass me. And yesterday, she leaked a forged financial document to destroy what I've built since. So, let me be very clear. I am not ashamed of the woman I was. I am proud of the woman I became after. And I will not let my ex or anyone else define me by a single moment of vulnerability. She paused, looked straight into the cameras. I love Valeria Whitmore, and I will not apologize for loving someone who defends me instead of betraying me, who builds with me instead of tearing me down, who sees me for who I am, not what I can offer. The room went silent. Then Valeria stepped forward. Come, lethal. All legal documents provided today have been verified by a third-party forensic investigator. Miss Callahan has been cleared of all wrongdoing, and as of this moment, Whitmore Enterprises is pursuing legal action against Sloane Mercer and her affiliates for defamation, fraud, and cyber misconduct. Let this be a message to anyone who thinks love makes a woman weak. Sometimes it makes her dangerous. The media exploded, not just with the news, but with the optics. Valeria and Nora standing side by side, heads high, eyes sharp. Women who had once been framed as predator and victim now revealed as partners, unshakable. And for the first time since the engagement began, the narrative shifted in their favor. That night, they sat in the penthouse, champagne open on the coffee table, news reports playing on mute. Nora curled into Valeria's side, bare feet tucked under her. "You didn't have to let me speak," she said. "You could have done the whole thing yourself." "It wasn't about me," Valeria replied. "It was about your voice." Nora leaned her head against her shoulder. "People are calling us a power couple now." "We are. Do you think they're afraid of us?" "I think they should be." Nora smiled. "Good." The phone buzzed. An alert. Sloane's name. A lawsuit had officially been filed. The media was running with it. Headlines like Mercer heiress under fire for targeting former fiancé and Callahan, and Whitmore strike back. But buried in the article was something more dangerous. A leaked photo of Sloane crying, being escorted out of her office building. Sympathy was starting to shift again. Nora exhaled. "She's going to play victim now. Let her." Valeria said, "You don't have to chase public opinion. You just have to hold your truth." "But what if she drags this out? What if she wins? Then we make sure she doesn't." Valeria stood, walked to the desk, and pulled out a folder. "I wasn't going to show you this yet, but now you should see it." Inside were architectural plans, a mock-up, branding drafts, logos, Callahan, and Whitmore. A real estate fund for women-led communities. Nora blinked. "What is this?" "Our next move," Valeria said. "An empire built in your name, too, not just mine. You want to start a new company with you. Equal stake, equal voice." Nora's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because I love you, and because power means nothing if I'm standing on the top alone." Nora walked across the room, kissed her. "Then let's build it together." That night, as they lay in bed, hands intertwined, bodies pressed close, Nora whispered, "I feel like I've spent years surviving. But with you, I'm finally living." "Then let's never survive again," Valeria whispered. "Let's take the whole damn world instead." And just outside their window, the city lights flickered, not in warning, but in recognition. The world was watching, and the women who had once been underestimated were done playing small. The video leaked 2 days after the press conference. It wasn't about Nora this time. It was about Valeria. But not the Valeria the world knew. Not the CEO. Not the business shark. Not the ruthless Whitmore heiress who tore down competitors with a single press release. This video was personal, intimate, painfully raw. It was footage from 10 years ago. Grainy but clear. A younger Valeria, maybe 21, in a courtroom hallway crying, pleading with two stiff-faced people. Her parents. "You don't understand," she said in the video, her voice breaking. "She's not just a phase. I love her." Her mother turned away without speaking. Her father's voice was ice. "Then consider yourself downed." The camera caught it all. Valeria collapsing to the floor as they walked away, her body curling inward. The sound of her sobs echoing off the sterile walls. The caption that ran with the video was simple. "This is the woman who claims power. She couldn't even hold her own family." Nora saw it the moment it went viral. She was in a meeting at Callahan and Whitmore's newly leased office. When her phone exploded with alerts, the silence in the room grew thick. Someone turned the screen. Nora watched the video once. Then again, her heart shattered. She stood without a word and left the room, dialing Valeria as she walked. No answer. The third call went straight to voicemail. "Where are you?" She whispered into the phone. "Please come home." The penthouse was dark when she arrived. Silent, she found Valeria in the kitchen. Back to the door, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the counter. Nora didn't speak, just walked to her slowly, gently, and touched her arm. Valeria flinched. "Don't," she said, voice hollow. "You shouldn't see me like this." "Like what?" Nora asked, like a human being. Like someone who got left behind by her own blood. She turned to face her then, eyes red, jaw tight. "I worked my whole life to build something untouchable. But it doesn't matter how powerful I get. The moment someone sees where I really come from, they look at me like I'm broken. I don't, Nora said. I look at you like someone who survived, like someone who still learned how to love, even after being taught to hate herself. Valeria's voice cracked. I haven't spoken to them in 10 years. I buried that girl. She's still in you, Nora whispered. But she's not weak. She's the reason you became who you are. Valeria shook her head. Sloane found the footage. Must have paid someone. Dug through sealed records. She knew exactly where to hit. Then we hit back. No, Valeria said quieter. This time we don't. We let them see it. Nora froze. Are you sure? Yes, because the world needs to know that I didn't rise out of privilege. I climbed out of abandonment. And if there's one thing Sloane doesn't understand, it's that pain doesn't make me smaller. It makes me impossible to silence. The next morning, Valeria posted the video herself with a caption that broke the internet. They disowned me. I built my own name. My strength was never about being unbroken. It was about being unafraid to show the scars. The post was shared over 6 million times in 24 hours. Celebrities, activists, LGBTQ+ leaders, survivors, everyone rallied behind her. Interviews poured in, requests for partnerships, a documentary deal. But none of it mattered to Valeria. All she cared about was Nora. That night, she held her tighter than ever. No words, just skin on skin, warmth against cold, breath sinking in the dark. I'm proud of you, Nora whispered against her collarbone. You didn't just survive them. You outlived them. You make me want to stop hiding, Valeria replied. Then don't, Nora said. Not for me. Not ever again. But even as they built new foundations from the wreckage, Sloane didn't stop. She couldn't. In the weeks that followed, her lawyers filed countersuits, accused Nora and Valeria of defamation, claimed the contract video had been altered, claimed she was the one being stalked and harassed. The noise got louder, but the world was no longer listening to Sloane. They were listening to the women who stood together hand in hand, storm after storm. Nora watched as her face appeared on magazine covers next to Valeria's. They were wrong about her. The headline said, "She's not the girl who got left. She's the woman who took her story back." The transformation was complete. She wasn't Sloane's ex. She wasn't Valeria's prop. She was Nora Callahan, partner, founder, force. And when the day came that the lawsuit was thrown out of court with a public statement labeling Sloane's claims as manipulative and intentionally defamatory, Valeria brought home a bottle of the most expensive champagne in the city. Nora didn't even wait for the cork. She pulled Valeria into her lap right there on the sofa, kissed her with a hunger that spoke months of battle. "We did it," she whispered. "Not yet," Valeria replied, grinning. "But we're close." And when Nora looked at her, flushed, victorious, adored, she realized this wasn't the end of the fight. It was just the beginning of everything they were going to build. The quiet didn't feel like silence anymore. It felt earned. After weeks of chaos, courtrooms, headlines, betrayal, and fire, the city finally felt like it was exhaling with them. Nora stood barefoot on the penthouse balcony, arms resting on the cold steel railing, hair loose and windswept. Below, Riverton shimmered like a sea of glass. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about Sloane. She wasn't thinking about headlines or contracts or what the world expected her to be. She was thinking about Valeria and what it meant to love someone not because you needed to, but because you couldn't imagine surviving without them. Behind her, Valeria moved through the apartment with uncharacteristic ease. Barefoot, hair slightly damp from the shower, wearing one of Nora's oversized university sweatshirts instead of her usual designer armor. There was music playing softly in the background, a vintage jazz record they'd found together in a dusty downtown store and bought without thinking. Nora turned as Valeria joined her, 2 mugs in hand, one of them already exactly how Nora liked it. 2 sugars, splash of oat milk. Nothing too fancy, Still warm, Valeria said, pressing it into her hands. Just like you like it. Nora smiled, but her eyes were still distant. Valeria noticed immediately. What's going on in that terrifyingly strategic brain of yours? Nora stared into the mug for a second, then looked up. Do you remember when all of this started? The night you walked into my office like you were on fire and told me you wanted revenge. Yeah, Nora said with a half laugh. I wasn't in love with you then. I know. And you didn't trust me. Still don't some days. Valeria teased. Especially when you use my toothbrush. Nora nudged her with her shoulder, then went quiet again. I've been thinking about that version of us. The fake one, the arrangement, the script. We were good at pretending, Valeria said. Too good. Nora turned fully to her. But we stopped pretending, didn't we? We did. So, let's stop pretending. We still need to keep calling this a contract marriage. Valeria's brow furrowed. What are you saying? Nora set her mug down, stepped closer. I'm saying I want to marry you for real. Not for revenge. Not for press. Not because we have to. Valeria froze. The words hit her like a slow breaking wave. Nora kept going. I want a ceremony with no press release. No press. Period. I want to wear something soft. I want you in something black because God forbid you show up in anything else. I want to write vows that make you roll your eyes and then cry 5 seconds later. I want to walk toward you, and no, I'm not walking away from anything. I'm walking toward the rest of my life. Valeria opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. Nora, you don't have to say yes now, Nora added quickly. I needed to say it. I needed you to know that even if everything fell apart tomorrow, the lawsuits, the companies, the money, I would still choose you every time. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full, thick with everything they weren't saying and everything they already had. Valeria stepped forward, reached into the pocket of the sweatshirt, and pulled something out. A velvet box. Nora stared. You've got to be kidding me. I was going to wait until next week, Valeria said softly. I had this whole dinner planned. A boat, candles, ridiculous flower arrangements that would have made you cry or vomit or both. You are going to propose, Nora, Valeria said, stepping close, taking her hand. I'm always going to propose, even after we're married. Every day, 1,000 ways. But yes, I bought this ring the day after you defended me in front of the press because that was the moment. I realized I would never find another person who could love both my power and my pain. She opened the box. A single ring, elegant, sharp, nothing over the top. Just real them. I don't have a speech, Valeria whispered, because you already said everything I feel. But if you'll have me, if you want the kind of forever where we're constantly interrupting meetings to kiss and yelling at each other over who forgot to restock the wine fridge, then yes, I want to be yours. No contracts, no angles, just yours and mine. Nora's hands trembled. Put it on. Valeria slid the ring onto her finger. It fit as if it had always belonged there. Of course it did. Then they were kissing deep, unhurried. Fierce, the kind that wipes out every wrong that came before and rewrites what comes next in breath and heartbeat. We're really doing this, Nora whispered. We're going to be wives. You're already mine, Valeria said. Now we make it official. That night they lay tangled in sheets and promises. Nora's head on Valeria's chest, listening to the steady drum beneath her ear. Do you think they'll ever leave us alone? No, Valeria said, but I don't care anymore. Let them watch. Let them talk. They don't get to touch what we have. And if we fall apart, then we fall together, Valeria answered. And we stand up the same way. Outside, the city kept turning. Somewhere out there, Sloane was bitter, plotting, nursing old wounds. For once, none of it mattered. In this room, just their breath, their bodies, their quiet vows. Nora and Valeria had found something bigger than revenge, bigger than power, bigger than the noise. They'd found home. The wedding was set for 6 weeks out. Not for spectacle, not for press, not for payback. Just them. Simple, elegant, private. 40 guests only, no corporate sponsors, no photographers, no publications. Valeria wanted a rooftop in Riverton skyline. Nora wanted a Vermont lakeside. They compromised on a private estate in upstate New York, with a horizon that felt like forever somewhere promises could feel safe. Planning should have been effortless. They had the money, the taste, the pull. But Nora learned fast that weddings aren't only about two people. They're about history, about ghosts, about every fracture that refuses to stay buried. It started with the guest list. "What about your parents?" Valeria asked one night, curled beside her with a glass of wine, both of them scrolling the planner's notes on a shared tablet. Nora went quiet. "They haven't called since the first wedding fell apart." "You think they're embarrassed?" "No. I think they're disappointed I didn't marry into the right kind of power." "Then maybe they don't deserve a seat at this table." "Still," Nora said more softly, "it hurts." Valeria kissed her temple. "You're allowed to grieve people who are still alive." "What about yours?" Nora asked. Valeria tensed. "You really want to go there?" Nora nodded. "Yes. They haven't spoken to me in a decade," Valeria said. "They won't come." "Would you want them to?" "No," Valeria said then after a beat. "But I think the little girl inside me still wonders what it would feel like to have a mother watch me say I do and be proud." Nora took her hand, held it tight. "I'll be there, and I'll be proud enough for both of them." The next hurdle came in the form of press intrusion. Despite all their efforts for privacy, someone leaked the venue location. By the end of the week, drones were flying over the estate, and tabloids ran stories about Riverton's Ice Queen and the scorned bride who conquered her. Nora was furious. "We can't even have one day that belongs to us." Valeria was calm, but beneath the surface, the fury was quiet and cold. "I'll handle it." And she did. By morning, Whitmore's legal team had served cease and letters to every outlet within range. Lawsuits were threatened, fines were issued, and within 48 hours, the air was clear again. Nora stared at her fiancé in awe. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "Too late," Valeria smirked. "You use my razor without asking. I'm just tolerating you at this point." They laughed, but the tension still lingered. The pressure of making everything perfect, of trying to reclaim something sacred from a past filled with betrayal weighed heavy. The night before the wedding planner's final walkthrough, Nora couldn't sleep. She slipped out of bed and went to the balcony wrapped in nothing but a silk robe and silence. Minutes later, Valeria joined her. "You're not having second thoughts, are you?" "No," Nora said instantly. "God, no. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Then what is it?" Nora turned to her, eyes tired but open. "What if it happens again? What if I get left again?" "I'm not her," Valeria said, stepping closer. "And this isn't that. But what if something goes wrong? What if I'm standing there waiting and you, Nora?" Valeria's voice was firm. "I'm going to be there. Not because I have to be. Not because it benefits me. But because there's nowhere on earth I'd rather be than watching you walk down that aisle, knowing I get to be yours forever." Nora swallowed hard. "Even when I'm difficult, especially then. Even when I don't believe in myself, I'll believe enough for both of us. Even when I feel like I'm still that broken girl in a white dress, waiting for someone who never shows." Valeria touched her face. "You're not that girl anymore. You're the woman who got back up, who faced the world and said, 'Watch me build everything they said I couldn't have.' And you? I'm the woman who gets to stand beside her. The lucky one." Nora leaned into her forehead against hers. "God, I love you. Good, because you're stuck with me." The next morning, they flew to the estate early, wanting to settle in before the final preparations. Everything was perfect. The florals, the table settings, the soft lighting, the private lake shimmering in the background like something out of a fairy tale. But as they walked the grounds hand in hand, a car pulled up to the edge of the property. Uninvited, Nora's breath caught. Sloane stepped out. Alone, unarmed, wearing black. Valeria's entire body tensed. What the hell is she doing here? Nora stepped forward before Valeria could. No, I'll handle this. She walked until she stood face to face with her past. You weren't invited. Sloane looked thinner, tired, but not apologetic. I know. Then why are you here? I needed to see it. I needed to know it's real. That you actually chose her. I did, Nora said, and I choose her again 1,000 times over. I'm sorry, Sloane said, voice barely above a whisper. I know it means nothing now, but I am. It's too late. I know. A long pause. Then, she really loves you. I know, Nora said, and the difference is she's never made me doubt it. Sloane nodded once. Good luck tomorrow. She turned, got back into the car, and drove off. Nora stood there for a long moment before turning around. Valeria was watching her from the distance, unreadable. Nora walked straight to her, took her hand. It's done, she said. All of it. She came to rattle you. She failed. You okay? I'm perfect, Nora said, because tomorrow I get to marry the only person who's ever made me feel like I'm more than just a headline or a lesson. Valeria didn't respond, just pulled her into her arms and held her there, the wind tangling through their hair, the lake glinting behind them like a promise. Tomorrow they would walk toward each other, not for business, not for image, but for love, for real. And nothing, not Sloane, not the past, not the noise, could stop that. Now the morning arrived quietly. No media vans, no chaos, no headlines, just birdsong, soft wind, and a sky so blue it felt like forgiveness. Nora woke first. She didn't open her eyes immediately. She just lay there breathing in the warmth of Valeria's body beside hers. The scent of skin and linen and lavender shampoo. The world outside had been loud for so long. But in this bed, wrapped in silence and sunlight, it felt like she had finally outrun it. When she did open her eyes, Valeria was watching her. You're awake, she whispered. You're staring, Nora replied. You're beautiful. Nora rolled her eyes, but her heart was already aching in that quiet, full way. Are you nervous? No, Valeria said. I was nervous before the board meetings, the scandals, the lawyers, but not now. Why? Because I know I'm making the best decision of my life. They stayed like that a while, just existing, fingers tangled between sheets. Words no longer needed. By the time the wedding planner knocked gently on the door, the estate was already buzzing with motion, florists arranging the final touches, musicians tuning strings, kitchen staff preparing hors d'oeuvres. No one would remember. Nora and Valeria had agreed to get ready in separate rooms, but neither moved. 5 more minutes, Valeria whispered, holding Nora a little tighter. 5 more. 5 forever. Eventually, they parted reluctantly and slipped into their respective spaces. Nora's dress wasn't traditional. It was silk, ivory, off the shoulder, fitted to perfection. No veil, no lace, just elegance. She stood in front of the mirror and tried to recognize herself. Not the woman who had been left at the altar. Not the viral ex. Not the scandal. Just Nora Callahan. She heard a knock. It was Nina, Valeria's assistant, and now almost a friend. She's ready, she said softly. Are you? More than I've ever been? The ceremony was held in the garden overlooking the lake. No platform, no stage. Just a stone path through archways of white roses and pale eucalyptus leading to a clearing framed by trees. The 40 guests rose as Nora appeared. She walked slowly, heart thudding, eyes locked on the woman waiting at the end of the aisle. Valeria stood in tailored black, hair slicked back, eyes glassy with something raw. Love, awe, fear, even the good kind. The kind that comes when everything you've ever wanted finally becomes real. Nora didn't look at the crowd. She didn't care who was there. All she saw was Valeria. All she heard was her own heartbeat. All she felt was gravity. When she reached her, Valeria took her hand. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The officiant said the words, but they barely registered. Not until it was time for vows. Nora, Valeria began, voice quiet but steady. I once thought I had to be cold to survive. That love was a luxury for people less bruised than me. Then you walked into my life furious, wild, wrecked, and you reminded me that vulnerability is not weakness, it's power. You taught me how to be soft without breaking, how to trust again. You didn't just heal me, you saw me. And for the rest of my life, I will never stop seeing you back. Nora's throat tightened, but she didn't look away. Valeria, she said, I thought I knew what love looked like. I thought it was something you had to earn, something that came with conditions. But you showed me that love is not a transaction. It's not performance. It's presence. You never tried to fix me. You just stood beside me until I remembered how to stand for myself. You are my clarity in chaos, my warmth in winter, my partner in every storm. And I vow here now always to love you not perfectly but fiercely. There were tears. No one pretended otherwise. When the rings were exchanged, their hands trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of what they were promising. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your wife," they didn't hesitate. It was soft, slow, deep, not performative, not rushed, just real. The kiss of two people who had been through hell and chose to build heaven. The applause was distant, the cheers irrelevant because for that one suspended moment, there was no one else in the world. Just them. When they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, both barefoot now, because heels were for show. And this was no longer a show. Nora leaned into Valeria and whispered, "We made it. We're just getting started," Valeria replied. The reception was candlelight and laughter, soft music and honest speeches. There were toasts from Nina, from one of Nora's old college friends, even from Valeria's head of security, who'd once sworn she was incapable of affection. "Turns out," he said, raising a glass, "she just needed the right woman." Nora and Valeria didn't disappear after the first dance. They stayed, talked, danced, ate cake with their hands, kissed whenever they felt like it. Not because it looked good, but because it felt good. By the time the guests left and the stars stretched overhead, Nora stood barefoot in the grass, staring up at the sky. Valeria came up behind her, wrapped arms around her waist. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said. "Mrs. Callahan and Whitmore," Nora corrected. "You took my name." "I took both of ours," Nora said, "because we built this together, and I want the world to remember that." Valeria kissed her neck. "You are full of surprises." "Good, because I'm not done surprising you." They walked back into the house, hand in hand, tired, but glowing. No headlines, no scandals, no scripts, just love at last. The day after the wedding, the world was still quiet. The headlines surprisingly respectful. "The Queens of Reinvention," one article read. "Nora and Valeria say I do on their own terms." Another photos had leaked not from hired media but from guests, who couldn't resist sharing soft grainy glimpses of candlelight vows and barefoot laughter. Instead of scandal, the public responded with admiration. Not because the ceremony was lavish, but because it wasn't. Because it felt like love, real, unfiltered, untouchable. Nora and Valeria spent their first married morning on the porch of the estate, drinking coffee in matching robes, legs tangled under a shared blanket. No meetings, no legal calls, just the rustle of trees and the occasional buzz of Valeria's phone, which she ignored with a smirk. "We're married," Nora whispered as if saying it aloud would make it more real. "We are," Valeria replied, "and I haven't had a panic attack in at least 12 hours. It's a record." "You mean you're finally at peace?" "No, I mean you've made me reckless. I've officially abandoned my inbox." "Scandalous," Nora teased. "You'll be bankrupt by Tuesday. At least I'll be bankrupt in a robe with my wife on my lap." They kissed lazily without urgency. The kind of kiss that comes after fire when the flame has settled into embers and warmth. That afternoon, they returned to the city. A quiet entrance, no press. The penthouse hadn't changed, but somehow everything felt different. The rooms weren't just hers or Nora's anymore. They were theirs. Valeria didn't just remove her watch and shoes. She took off the weight of years. And Nora, she glowed in a way that was entirely new. Not because she was in love, but because for the first time, she felt chosen. The following week, life returned. Slowly, reluctantly, but it returned. Board meetings resumed. Press requests piled up. Invitations to galas, summits, magazine covers. But one message, one name stood out. A private email from Elena Voss, the European real estate mogul with operations in Rome, Zurich, Abu Dhabi. She'd followed their story, admired their strategy, and she had a proposition. A joint expansion, a global merger. Callahan and Whitmore International. The offer was massive, risky, revolutionary. Nora stared at the proposal on her tablet while Valeria poured wine. This could change everything, Nora said. It would change everything, Valeria replied. You'd be traveling non-stop. Half her operations would move overseas. We'd have to rebrand, hire new teams, redesign everything. Nora looked up. And you hate change. I hate instability. But this might be growth. Do you want it? Valeria hesitated. I don't know, do you? Nora looked back at the screen. The numbers were undeniable. The prestige, the potential. But so was the pressure, the distance, the sacrifice. We just got married, she said softly. Are we really ready to stretch ourselves across oceans? Only if we stretch together. They sat with it for hours. No decisions, just silence, thought, hands brushing over glass and paper and skin. That night, as Nora showered, Valeria stepped into her office for a call. What she didn't expect was a message waiting. Anonymous number, just one line. You can build new things, Valeria, but your past doesn't stay buried forever. Attached, a photo, blurry, but unmistakable. A woman, pale skin, dark eyes, standing in the background of their wedding, not on the guest list, not part of the staff, just watching. Valeria's chest tightened. She hadn't seen that face in 10 years. Not since law school. Not since the affair that nearly cost her everything. Not since the woman who knew her worst mistakes and wasn't afraid to use them. Valeria deleted the message, locked her phone, but she couldn't lock the memory. Later in bed, Nora curled into her without question. You're quiet, she murmured. Just tired, Valeria lied. Long day. We don't have to decide about the merger now. I know. We'll do what's right for us. Valeria nodded, kissed her forehead, tried to sleep. But in the dark, the message haunted her. Because if the woman in the photo had found her again, it meant trouble. Not just for the company, but for the marriage. And she didn't know if she could survive hurting Nora. Not now. Not ever. The storm didn't announce itself. It didn't drive with thunder or lightning. It crept in through cracks. Quiet, precise, intentional. It began with a letter. No signature, no return address, just a crisp envelope left on the concierge desk at Whitmore Tower. Hand delivered, marked only with for Valeria. Valeria recognized the handwriting immediately. Her hands trembled as she opened it. I told you I wouldn't stay buried. We both know how this ends. Meet me or I meet her. There was an address, a time, no threat. But Valeria had known Sabrina Vale too long to misread silence. She folded the letter, slid it into her blazer, and didn't breathe again until she was in her car. Windows tinted, fingers gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Sabrina hadn't just been a mistake. She had been a weapon. 10 years ago during law school, Valeria had fallen for her brilliance, her fire, her sharp tongue, and sharper mind. But what started as passion had turned quickly into control, manipulation disguised as intensity. Sabrina broke her confidence. Her career nearly destroyed her reputation with fabricated accusations. After Valeria ended things, it had taken years, therapy, and the careful rebuilding of her image to erase the shadows Sabrina left. And now she was back. Nora had no idea, and Valeria wasn't ready to break the world they'd just begun building. The meeting place was discreet, a dimly lit cafe near the river, long since closed for the season. Valeria arrived first, heart thudding, palms damp. When Sabrina walked in, nothing about her had changed. Still impeccable, still cold, still beautiful in that dangerous way. "You look older," Sabrina said, sliding into the chair. "Marriage suits you. Or maybe it just makes your lies go down easier." "What do you want?" Valeria asked, flat. "Closure. You torched that bridge a long time ago. Did I?" Sabrina's smirk didn't touch her eyes. "Because I have emails, recordings, details the world would eat up. Especially your new wife. Does she know what you did to keep your name clean?" "You lied," Valeria said. "You manipulated. You threatened. You tried to ruin me when I left. Prove it." Sabrina's smile sharpened. "You think the world cares about truth, Valeria. It cares about stories. And mine is very compelling." Valeria felt her throat tighten. "You're bluffing. Try me," Sabrina said, rising. "You have 48 hours. Tell your precious Nora who you really are, or I will." And then she was gone, like a ghost leaving poison in her wake. Valeria didn't go home. She drove for hours without a destination, thoughts colliding, the company, the expansion, the Elena Voss merger, and Nora's smile. The way she'd said "I do" with trembling lips and fierce eyes. All of it now felt precarious, one breath from breaking. When she finally returned to the penthouse, Nora was waiting. "Where were you?" she asked, soft but steady. "You didn't answer your phone." "I had meetings," Valeria said, lying. Something came up. Nora didn't press, but her eyes narrowed. "Are you okay?" "Just tired. Come to bed." But Valeria couldn't sleep. And the next morning, the silence grew over coffee, over board briefings, over the emails piling up from Elena, asking for updates on the merger decision. Nora finally snapped. "Valeria, talk to me. Something's wrong." Valeria opened her mouth, closed it. She couldn't. "Not yet. Not like this. I just need time," she said. Nora stepped back. "You said we'd never lie to each other. This isn't a lie. Then why does it feel like one?" Valeria reached for her. Nora flinched. And in that moment, something cracked. Not fully, not broken, but enough. The next morning, Nora received a message. A video, anonymous. Sabrina's voice. Her face obscured. "You don't know who you married. Ask her what she did in 2016. Ask her what she covered up." Nora watched the video alone in the office. Her pulse raced. Her stomach twisted. And then she printed it and went home. Valeria was in the living room pouring a drink she hadn't touched in months. Nora dropped the envelope on the table. "What happened in 2016? Valeria turned, stilled. Their eyes met. "Where did you get that?" "It doesn't matter." "Nora, tell me the truth." Silence. "Then I was with someone before. It was toxic, controlling. She tried to ruin me when I left. She falsified claims, went to the media. I had to fight to keep my license to protect the company." "Did you pay her off?" Nora asked. "Did you hide it?" "I did what I had to do to survive." "You said no more lies." "It wasn't a lie. It was a survival tactic. You should have told me." "I was scared," Valeria whispered. "Scared you'd see me as broken, or worse, corrupt." Nora stepped back, chest heaving. "You're not corrupt, but you are a coward." That hit harder than a slap. Valeria sat down slowly. "I didn't want to lose you. Then you should have trusted me with the truth." Nora left the room, packed a bag. Just one. No theatrics, no slammed doors. "I need space," she said at the door. "I love you, but I don't know how to trust you right now." And then she was gone. Valeria sat in the dark, the silence louder than any storm. The woman she had built an empire beside, the woman she married with a vow and a trembling hand gone, not because of a scandal, but because of fear, her own. And fear she realized too late was more dangerous than betrayal. Valeria hadn't cried in over a decade, not during her dissownment, not during lawsuits or boardroom betrayals, not even the night she almost lost everything, but the first night Nora didn't come home. Something inside her cracked, and the second night it broke. The penthouse felt too big without her, every room echoing with silence, every corner holding a memory. The hallway where Nora used to drop her heels with a sigh. The kitchen where she made the worst coffee Valeria ever drank. The balcony where she whispered, "I love you," like it was gospel. Gone, all of it. Valeria didn't sleep, didn't eat. She sat at the edge of the bed they once shared and stared at the ring on her finger, unmoving. By day 3, Nina entered the penthouse with food and a list of rescheduled meetings. "She still hasn't returned your calls." "No." "Then stop waiting for permission," Nina said. "Go earn your forgiveness." Valeria blinked slowly. She deserves better than a performance. Then don't give her one. Give her the truth. That night, Valeria wrote a letter. Not a speech, not a statement, a confession. She wrote until the sun came up. Every secret, every wound, every cowardly choice. Then she folded the pages, sealed them, and left them at the front desk of the hotel Nora had checked into. No name, no expectations, just hope. Nora opened it 2 hours later. She sat on the floor of her hotel room and read it once, then again, and again. And by the 4th reading, her hands were shaking because it wasn't just a letter. It was a reckoning. Valeria hadn't tried to excuse what happened. She'd explained it with raw honesty, with trembling accountability. And at the very end, she'd written, "I built my entire world to feel unshakable. But losing you, that undid me more than anything ever could. If you never come back, I'll understand. But if you do, know that I will spend the rest of my life earning your trust, your laughter, and the chance to be better, not just for you, but for us." Nora stared at the signature. "Yours still, Valeria." That night, Nora went back to the penthouse. Valeria wasn't home. She was at Sabrina's apartment alone, ready. She walked in without knocking. Sabrina was already waiting. "Finally," she said, swirling wine in a glass. "Come to negotiate your soul." "I came to end this," Valeria said. "You've done your damage. You got between us. Are you satisfied?" "No," Sabrina replied. "Because I wanted you to break and you're still standing. You don't have that power anymore, don't I?" "No," Valeria said, stepping forward. "Because the woman I love knows everything, and she still might walk away. But she'll do it with the truth in her hands, not your poison." Sabrina's smile faded. "You think you're invincible?" "No," Valeria said. "I'm just not afraid of you anymore." She left without another word. And for the first time in years, Sabrina didn't follow. When Valeria returned home, Nora was on the couch. No lights, just moonlight through the window, casting shadows across her face. "You went to her?" she asked. Valeria nodded. "I told her the truth. I told her she doesn't get to touch what we built." Nora stood, walked slowly toward her. "And what did we build, Valeria? Was it all ambition? A weapon?" "No," Valeria said softly. "It started that way, but it became real. Somewhere between the coffee in bed and you defending me at a press conference. Somewhere between your laugh in Rome and the way you held my hand in court. I fell in love with you. Not because I had something to gain, but because loving you was the first thing that made me feel human again." Nora stared at her for a long time. "I was afraid you'd leave," Valeria whispered. "That if I told you everything, you'd walk out and I'd never recover." "You were wrong," Nora said. "I didn't walk away because of your past. I walked away because you didn't let me walk into it with you. I know. And I'm not coming back because you begged," Nora said. "I'm coming back because you finally let me see you." She took a deep breath. And I still love what I see. Valeria's eyes filled, not with panic, but with gratitude. So overwhelming she couldn't speak. Nora stepped closer, touched her cheek. We'll build trust again, brick by brick. But I'm not running and you're not alone anymore. Are you sure? Valeria asked, voice cracking. I'm sure, Nora said, because you're mine and I'm yours even when it's hard. Especially then. They kissed like it was the first time, not because it was perfect, but because it was earned. And when Valeria held her again, it wasn't desperate. It was steady, real. The next morning, they called Elena Voss, said yes to the international expansion. Together, as a team, they hired new executives, created a mentorship program for queer women in business, donated a portion of the profits to survivors of domestic abuse. Valeria's idea. They didn't run from their pasts. They built a new future atop them. It wasn't easy. They had fights, hard ones, nights where Nora needed space and Valeria needed reassurance. But they always found their way back again and again because that's what love is. Not perfect, but persistent. 1 year later, on their first anniversary, Nora surprised Valeria with a key. What's this? A villa in Umbria, Nora said. For the quiet. For us. You bought a house in Italy? No, Nora said. We did. Callahan and Whitmore now has an office in Florence. But this place is just for love. They moved in by summer, drank wine barefoot, cooked terribly, wrote new vows by candlelight. And on one particularly perfect night as the sun dipped behind olive trees, and the air turned to gold, Valeria pulled Nora into her lap and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Nora kissed her. "Thank you for becoming someone worth fighting for." And that was how their story ended. Not in scandal or abandonment, but in quiet strength, in laughter, in a love that refused to fade. Even under strain, they had been enemies. They had been partners. Above all, they became what neither had ever dared to expect home. If you enjoyed this and want to support the channel in a special way, please click the thanks button below, the one marked with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.